Let's talk about René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy. Keep in mind, this video was created with the powers of AI, details on the screen right now and in the description. Let's get started.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving headfirst into the mind of René Descartes.
Descartes, often called the father of modern philosophy.
Exactly. Born in France, 1596. And he wasn't just, an abstract thinker. He was also a brilliant mathematician, a natural scientist. Multifaceted, really.
And the time period is so interesting, isn't it? He's sort of straddling the line before the Enlightenment really kicks off, but his ideas, absolutely crucial in shaping that whole age of reason.
Yeah, they had a huge impact on science, politics, even how society thought about itself.
Totally transformative.
And that famous phrase, cogito ergo sum. Well, you've probably heard it. I think, therefore I am. That's going to be a key piece for us today.
It really is. It sounds almost simple, doesn't it? But it marks such a radical shift. The idea that your own thinking is the first thing you can be absolutely sure of.
Yeah, that's the core we want to unpack.
Definitely. But to really get it, we need to look at his beginnings. Born in La Haye, France, and sadly, his mother died very shortly after he was born.
Yeah. And his education. That took him to a really prestigious place, right? The Jesuit College of Flèche.
A very big deal. From 1606 to 1614, it was considered, one of the most celebrated schools in Europe.
Wow.
And the education was broad: classical studies, languages, literature, and philosophy, of course. Mainly Aristotle, but with Jesuit interpretations.
And mathematics, too. That started there.
Yes, importantly, mathematics was part of the curriculum, and it clearly clicked with him.
But here's the interesting part. Even after all that, graduating from this top school, he said he felt confused and dissatisfied.
Which seems counterintuitive, right?
Totally. You'd think he'd feel set, but no.
Well, that very dissatisfaction seems to be what drove him. It led him to study independently, to travel. He felt the knowledge he'd received wasn't enough, wasn't certain enough.
Makes sense. And he also got a law degree from Poitiers in 1616.
He did, yeah. Shows he wasn't purely detached from practical matters. But that desire for certainty, for real-world knowledge, it pushed him further.
Right. Into joining armies. First in the Netherlands.
Under Prince Maurice of Nassau, 1618.
And then Germany with Maximilian of Bavaria in 1619. But it wasn't just about being a soldier for him.
No, not at all. These were also chances for intellectual connection. Like in the Netherlands, he met Isaac Beeckman, a mathematician.
Oh, right. That was a key friendship.
Hugely important. Descartes even dedicated his first work, the Compendium of Music, to Beeckman. It shows that interaction was vital.
And then comes that night, November 10th, 1619, in Germany. It's cold, he's trying to stay warm, and he has these three incredibly vivid dreams.
This is the moment. He didn't just see them as weird dreams. He interpreted them as, well, a divine sign.
A sign telling him what?
You're revealing his life's mission. He believed he was meant to apply a mathematical-like method to find the absolute foundation for all science, to basically reform all knowledge, starting right at the root with philosophy.
Wow, so those dreams literally set his life's course.
Pretty much. The next 9 years, he dedicated himself to figuring out how, refining this method.
And we see hints of this in that unfinished book, Rules for the Direction of the Mind.
Exactly. It wasn't published then, but it contains the core ideas, his big goal: to generalize mathematical methods.
To get clear and distinct knowledge about, well, everything.
Everything knowable, yeah. An incredibly ambitious goal.
So how did this method actually work?
Well, key parts were breaking complex problems down into the smallest, simplest bits, taking simple, absolutely certain steps, and then constantly reviewing everything to make sure no errors crept in.
Like building with bricks, making sure each one is solid before adding the next.
Precisely. But the absolute cornerstone, the most crucial rule, was this: never accept anything as true unless it presented itself so clearly and distinctly that there was absolutely no reason to doubt it.
That's the heart of his method of doubt.
Absolutely. It's radical. Don't just accept tradition or what your senses tell you or what authorities say. Question everything. Actively try to doubt it.
Until you hit something you just can't doubt.
Exactly. That bedrock certainty.
So to really focus on this huge project, in 1628 he moves to the Netherlands.
Right. He wanted solitude, quiet time to think, and he spent most of the rest of his life there. It was his most productive period.
Did he cut himself off completely?
Not entirely. He registered at the University of Franeker in 1629, so still some connection to academia, but on his own terms.
And this is when he starts really digging into metaphysics, God, the soul.
Yes, these deep metaphysical investigations. And crucially, he didn't see this as separate from science. He believed understanding God and the soul provided the very foundation of physics.
That's his metaphysical turn, right? Believing you need to sort out the ultimate reality first.
Precisely. It underpins everything else. In fact, he was planning this huge work, The World.
Le monde, yeah.
It was meant to explain basically all natural phenomena using mechanical principles, like the universe as a giant machine.
But he didn't publish it. Why not?
Well, then came the news about Galileo being condemned by the church in 1633.
Ah, for supporting the sun-centered model.
Right, and Descartes, seeing that, decided to suppress the world, partly for safety, partly out of obedience to the church. It really shows the tension back then.
So, a major work shelved, but his ideas still got out.
They did, just maybe more cautiously, and in parts. First came the Discourse on the Method in 1637.
And this one was in French, not Latin. That's significant.
Huge. Made it accessible way beyond just scholars. It's part personal story how he arrived at his method, and part explanation of the method itself.
And it touched on his big ideas.
Yes. Early versions of mind-body dualism, the idea that mind and body are totally different things. Also his provisional morality, like rules to live by while you're doubting everything else.
It came with scientific essays, too.
Yeah, on optics, dioptrics, meteorology, and geometry, showing the breadth of his work.
Okay, then comes 1641, the big one. Meditations on First Philosophy.
Now in Latin and going much deeper into metaphysics, this is where he really applies the method of doubt with full force.
Doubting his senses, doubting mathematics, even doubting if he's dreaming.
Pushing skepticism to its absolute limit. Until he hits that one thing he can't doubt. The fact that he is doubting, that he is thinking.
Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am.
That's the bedrock. His first certainty.
And from there, he tries to build back up.
Exactly. He uses the cogito to argue for God's existence. And if a perfect God exists, God wouldn't deceive him fundamentally, so he can trust his clear and distinct perceptions.
Which allows him to establish that sharp distinction between the mind, thinking, non-physical, and the body, extended physical.
Right. And he actually saw the meditations as laying the groundwork for his physics. The certainty about mind, body, and God was essential for understanding the physical world.
Okay, moving on. 1644, The Principles of Philosophy.
This was intended more like a textbook, Latin again, laying out his whole system from the roots up.
The tree analogy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Metaphysics are the roots, physics is the trunk, and all the other sciences, medicine, mechanics, morals, are the branches growing from that trunk.
A unified vision of knowledge.
Definitely. And then his last published work, 1649, The Passions of the Soul.
Back to French for this one.
God.
And focused on.
Psychology, basically. His theory of emotions. He identified 6 primary passions: wonder, love, hatred, desire, joy, and sadness, which he thought were the basis for all our other feelings.
So, looking back at all this work, what are the huge philosophical contributions?
Well, first, he's a key figure in rationalism. The idea that reason, not sensory experience like Aristotle thought, is the primary source of reliable knowledge.
And substance dualism, that's massive. The mind and body as completely separate entities.
Hugely influential and still debated today, right? The whole mind-body problem. How do they interact if they're so different?
Yeah, a puzzle he arguably created.
Maybe. And then there's his mechanistic philosophy, explaining the physical world, even animal bodies, just through matter and motion. No need for souls in animals, just complex machines.
That paved the way for a more scientific biology, I suppose.
Absolutely. Treating the body as something objectively studyable.
But these ideas weren't universally loved, were they? Lots of controversy.
Oh, definitely. Some worried his dualism could lead to atheism. If the mind is so separate, where does that leave the soul's connection to the world, or even God's role?
And the church had issues.
They did.
Yeah.
In 1663, years after his death, several of his works landed on the Index of Prohibited Books.
Wow. He also got into public arguments.
Yeah, like with a Dutch theologian, Gisbertus Boetius, things could get quite heated.
Yet, despite all that friction,
His philosophy spread, it was taught in universities, his influence was just undeniable.
the method of doubt, the focus on reason,
Yeah.
it changed everything.
Fundamentally, thinkers like Pascal, Spinoza, Leibniz, Locke, Kant, they all had to grapple with Descartes. He set the terms of the debate for centuries.
And not just philosophy,
Yeah.
his geometry work.
Crucial. That analytic geometry, merging algebra and geometry, was essential groundwork for Newton and Leibniz developing calculus. Shows his mathematical brilliance was deeply connected to his philosophy.
So the title father of modern philosophy seems pretty secure.
I'd say so. That focus on the individual thinker, starting from doubt, seeking certainty through reason, that's the bedrock of the modern philosophical project in many ways.
Yeah, his end came relatively young, didn't it?
It did. In 1649, he accepted an invitation from Queen Christina of Sweden, moved to Stockholm,
Quite a change of scene.
and sadly, it didn't last long. He died there just 4 months later, February 11th, 1650.
Only in his early 50s. What happened?
Officially pneumonia, possibly related to the harsh Swedish winter and early morning tutoring sessions for the Queen, though there's always been some speculation about other causes.
And his remains were eventually moved back to France.
Most of them, yes,
Yeah.
to the Abbey of Saint-Germain-des-Prés in Paris. But the story of his skull is a bit complicated. Its exact location is debated.
A final little mystery.
Seems fitting, perhaps. So you look at his journey from that dissatisfied student
Yeah, confused by the best education available.
to someone driven by dreams, forging this rigorous method of doubt and completely reshaping how we think about knowledge, reality, ourselves.
An incredible intellectual adventure. His pursuit of certainty through reason, trying to build knowledge from scratch, it's still so relevant.
Absolutely. His work is still studied, argued over, built upon. That mark he left on Western thought is just indelible.
Which brings us to a thought for you, the listener.
Yeah, think about Descartes' core move. That emphasis on individual reason, on questioning assumptions, on not taking things at face value. How could you apply that kind of critical thinking, that methodical doubt, to the challenges, the beliefs, the information you encounter in your own life today?
It's a powerful tool. Questioning things down to their roots, something to definitely mull over.